Am I capable as a fan of seeing through the fog of admirance and seeing these performers, these bandmen, as people instead of idols? Can I continue to call Tatsuo the love of my life, but never really consider Muck's growth as people when I'm complaining? Can I do that? I don't know. So this is not necessarily a planned video. I just felt like putting this on here instead of my TikTok because it was gonna be really long if I put it on my TikTok. So I was like, yeah, let's talk about this on YouTube. So about a week ago, I was riding in the car with an Uber driver and we were having small talk. I like small talk, and if an Uber driver wants to talk, I'll talk, and if they don't want to talk, I won't talk to them. In the middle of us talking, I realized in the background that he was playing Metallica on the radio, right? It was very, very low, turned down very, very low, but I was still a little surprised because usually when I'm in the car with people, nobody's playing no Metallica. So after we were done small talking, I was like, hey, can you turn up the radio? This is Metallica. I would love to listen to it. He was like, actually, this isn't the radio. This is their new album that they just came out with. My mind was blown because I did not know Metallica had come out with an album recently. I hadn't heard anything about it. And then I was kind of excited because I don't run across many Metallica fans nowadays. I just think old rock isn't as much of a talked about topic as it used to be when I was growing up. So I was super excited. Me and him started going back and forth and talking about Metallica. I was like, oh, this is my favorite song. Seek and Destroy. What's your favorite song? What's your favorite album? I forgot everything that man told me. But I did remember some things. I don't know why. Maybe because Metallica has been around for a very long time and he seemed like an older dude. I was like, hey, do you feel a sense of loss from Metallica not being the same way that they used to be when you were growing up? Are you sad that they changed? Do you think their music quality has gone down after all of these years? Metallica's been around for a long time. I really wanted to know what his opinion was, being somebody who was there when they were newer. He spoke from an angle that I had never really considered before. He said, I got into Metallica when I was 18. It would be extremely weird if they were talking about the same things and making the same nature of music that they were making back when I was 18. This album talks about life troubles. It talks about the things that they've been through mentally. It's a very mature album. Just like I've matured over all of these years, so has Metallica. The way it affected me was very, very profound because I'd never really heard anybody express support for a band from this angle before, like this very humanizing angle. I was racking my brain for bands, groups that I still continue to support today that I've been following for a long time. First band that came to mind, probably because they're super popular, was the Gazette, but even though their sound is more commercial in my opinion than it used to be, I'm actually okay with the trajectory of the Gazette. Like, it doesn't bother me. I don't feel a sense of loss. So because the Gazette could not work in my mind, I was like, okay, let's think of another band that I grew up with that I have a really huge attachment to. The next band that came to mind did make me feel this tremendous sense of loss, and that was Muck. Whenever Muck pops up on, say, Instagram, or I see pictures of them and some of their old concepts and magazine shoots, I feel like I miss the old them all the time. Using Muck as a reference, the difference I realized from this Uber guy continuing to support Metallica versus me continuing to support Muck up to now was I had always respected Muck's change from an angle of devotion rather than seeing them as people. Devotion and admiration are so easy to do when you're young, but sitting back and actually respecting these band members as people who might not want to continue doing the same thing for years and years and years and years and years and years, I hadn't really thought that in depth about that fact. Like, they just might get bored with what they're making. Of course, the things that they want to do, the things that they want to sing about would change over time. It just makes sense. These changes might take on a different form. They're at different stages of life. Also, they're coming from a completely different culture. Nonetheless, we all go through change. The question is, or the question I posed to myself in this moment was, am I capable as a fan of seeing through the fog of admirance and seeing these performers, these bandmen, as people instead of idols? Can I continue to call Tatsuo the love of my life, but never really consider or even think about Muk's growth as people when I'm complaining? Can I do that? I don't know. But this Uberman had me in my head for a while. I was just like, dang, couldn't be me. Nah, that's not what I he just made me think about it more. I've talked a little bit about bands wanting to do different things, but I wasn't thinking that much about it. If anything, I was like, yo, you guys make your money. Change the music if that's what's necessary for you to make a living off your craft. But to actually be like, these are people and people grow. Don't expect for them to stay the same. Understanding that that's an inherent part of human nature to want to do different things and not do the same thing over and over again. I didn't really think about it that deeply. I was just mad that the music's not the same. You're not necessarily receiving the same amount of growth as the artist who's making the music, putting all their hours into the music, putting all their life force into the music, because I do think life force goes into music. Anything that you love to do that is aligned with your heart, I feel like it takes something out of you. It takes energy out of you. When we're sitting back and just turning this music on, it's easy for us to desire familiarity. That's just a few button clicks away. We want to hear the same things. Again, we want to be able to turn on an artist's music and feel an attachment to that artist. But the people who are making the actual music are obviously growing expeditiously with each song, with each performance, with each album, the more stuff that they make. And them wanting to make different music seems way more obvious when I look at things from that perspective. There are some other bands I want to mention when it comes to this topic. I know I already made a video about Dararoma and Deemlim. I think I covered them in the same video. Made a video about their changes and how I feel about those changes, but I don't think I gave the perspective of them growing as people. I'm also afraid to watch the video because I don't watch any of my older videos because I think my makeup looks crazy. I'm pretty sure that I did not mention change from the perspective of individual growth. If I did, I forgot. So this Uber guy kind of reset my brain, I guess. I think back about what Yoshiatsu said about being in Dararoma. I made a TikTok about it, and this is basically what he said. He said way more. At the time when I read the things that he was saying, I was like, damn, this is news to me. I can't say that I understood him completely because I was like, you've already been making good music all this time. Why can't you see that? But now that I'm a couple years wiser and I've had some revelations, I realize that once an individual has grown past a certain point, it's hard for them to keep doing the same thing, to take pride in older work and not feel stagnant and not feel like they're not doing the best that they could do. Now I feel like I get it way more. Now that I'm actively following Fukudo and listening to the music, I can see that it was a far cry from what Yoshiatsu was doing in Dararoma. And it's like, wow, this is what was in his heart. It must have been extremely painful for him to want to do this and to be making the music that Dararoma was making instead. Fukudo's sound is completely different. I was listening to a song the other day. I was just like, okay, go off Yoshiatsu with them vocals. I love his voice, but the background music sounded very similar to kind of like ragtime music. Even the stuff that Dararoma was releasing before they broke up is completely different than Fukudo. So I think Yoshiatsu is a good example of growth, you know, wanting to do something different as a person. A second example I have is actually Kyo from Dear on Grey. There was a Dear on Grey interview where Kyo was talking about how he had a lot of anger inside of him, a lot of rage during Dear on Grey's earlier days. I wonder how this anger translated in their music that they released in the past. And I also wonder how the cooling of his rage over time has revealed itself in Deg's music over the years. You guys would have to tell me if there's any differences you guys can point out watching Dear on Grey over the years. I just wonder with how Kyo spoke then and how he speaks now, if there was ever a change that was large enough to be sensed through Dear on Grey's music. Any changes that have shown that Kyo has grown as an individual instead of like staying in the same place, you know? I know he has mentioned that he likes singing about dark things, but there can be a lot of joy and beauty in singing about dark things. Maybe the music, instead of coming from a place of anger, started to come from other places. Even though I wouldn't consider myself like a Dear on Grey fan, I do find a lot of fascination with the members, especially Kyo. I just know that I follow Kyo on social media, right? There's something about his aura that feels happy and content in comparison to some of the stuff that I would see around when they kind of were like a younger band, I guess you could say. Again, I don't know, you guys would have to tell me. He looks so happy. And it's nice to see. I think the point of this video is it's better to recognize these artists, bandmen, etc. as people who are continuously growing and can't stay in the same place without feeling smothered, rather than just being like, they need money. They need to be more palatable to other audiences. That is why they're changing. Those were the things that were at the forefront of my mind. So that I forgot the basics, you know? Human growth. I forgot that. I can't believe I forgot that. That's so important. Given these are bands and like musicians that have already succeeded, that's probably more of a reason for them to change than anything else. And I'm gonna try my best to be more empathetic to groups when they change. And I'm gonna try to do this from now on, not from an angle of idolization, but instead from the perspective of someone who is aware of the human experience. More importantly, the artist's experience, because I also am an artist. Like, I may not make music, but I do understand an artist's need for growth and not staying in the same place. If I can feel that way about myself and the other people that are close to me in my life, then I should be able to use that same energy towards musicians that I barely know, but I do love. This was definitely a random video. I had this ride with this Uber driver about a week ago. I had a lot of thoughts about it. I wanted to share it on here. If you guys want to contribute anything to the conversation, of course, it's always appreciated. I will have more concrete Visual K content soon, so look forward to it. Peace out, guys.